Welcome to the Wrestling Philosophy Show, where we discuss unique perspectives and beliefs on the sport of wrestling. Give us a follow or subscribe on various social media platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Enjoy the show.
Anyway, I was just saying to you there, how I've got corner, rug inventory. Tis the season.
It's the season right now, right?
Man, best thing to do is drop me an email, smitty43952@gmail.com, or you can text me at 740-278-8016. And again, we got inventory, man, and get a quick turnaround time. And our rugs are all top sprayed with our MRSA staph killer that kills coronavirus as well, man. So, we were already keeping it clean and keeping it classy before Corona. Now you really got to have a corner rug, right?
Welcome, Mindset Mike. Glad we could connect. I know we've been trying the last week and a half to connect. We're talking about Fargo, things like that. But first off, let's fill the listeners in on your background. A quick recap.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I love your podcast. Love what you guys are doing. So I'm happy to contribute. So a little bit about me. I'm one of the directors at Wrestling Mindset, the bigger parent company of that Winning Mindset. We have sports specific mindset training programs to do exactly what it sounds like, to train athletes' mind to maximize their potential, not just in sports, but in school and life. So wrestling mindset, basketball mindset, lacrosse mindset, you name it, right? And I was actually, little known fact, I was a wrestling mindset client back in 2014. I run a wrestling academy here in Houston, Texas. And at that time, I had 13 kids in the state finals. 9 should have won. 5 just didn't show up. And as you could see behind me, I was in the FBI for 7 years, and I did things from national security surveillance to Hostage negotiation, forensic accounting, a lot of really cool stuff. And long story short, if I'm not getting inside your kid's head, then what am I missing here, right? So 5 kids just mentally didn't show up, even though physically and mentally they were prepared. So I realized that, even though I gave great advice, I needed a system and a process and resources to be able to teach confidence, relaxing under pressure, instead of just talking about it. So I used the program as a client. I had drastic results. They're like, man, you really understand what we're doing. I became one of the original 8 coaches in the company back in 2014. And then 2 years later in 2016, I left the bureau to do this full time. At that time, we had about 125 clients. Now we service about 4,000 athletes and teams a year.
Holy cow.
Yeah, people don't realize how big of an operation it is. We have over 60 coaches, 4,000 clients. We got people in different countries. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I never knew that. We had Jake Hunter on previously, and he never mentioned how big you guys are. I knew you guys are big, but I didn't know you guys were that big. So
yeah, I think over 100,000 followers across social media too.
Oh, wow. So, and you mentioned sports, right? Do all the sports and also some, sales with,
Yeah, business as well.
Yeah.
So mindset is mindset, right? Like everyone talks about how sports are 90% mental. Well, so is life. Everyone complains about how this generation is weak and America's weak. We're not physically weak. We're mentally, like emotionally weak. And we have to teach these sort of skills like confidence, relaxing under pressure, aggressiveness, toughness. We have to teach them. They're no longer learned casually like they used to. And I'll say this real quick, and then we'll get into things. So something I realized as I was giving presentations recently, it's like, so why do we lack this, right? Well, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, life was tough. Life made you tough, and sports made you tougher, right? Like they were heating their houses through ovens. They had to walk 5 miles uphill in the snow, like, the stuff our grandparents would say, right? So life was tough, and sports were even tougher. So the athletes were the absolute toughest people. Now, fast forward, life becomes a little easier, but sports athletes still pretty tough. Now, fast forward to the recent generations, life is easy. We've lowered the standards. Sports are a lot easier. We've lowered the standards. And I don't just mean to perform. I mean the expectations, the culture. It's soft. Life is softer. So maybe not easier. Life is softer.
Oh, yeah.
And sports are softer.
There's more options that are considered sport now too, right? I mean, you have esports.
Right, yeah,
I mean, there's more options, right? 50 years ago, there was how many sports? Now today, a ton of sports, right?
So that's the reason why I think that we struggle, is because ultimately we used to casually learn life lessons because life was tough and sports were tougher. Well, now they're both kind of soft. So kids are not learning the toughness and the grit that they used to just casually get by going through life and sports. So that's why mindset training has been so effective, because we intentionally teach these things.
Right. And, we talked off air, and I think you talked big picture, right? And we talked off air real quick on, Simone Biles, right? I mean, that's right. End result, mental training. Just recap on your thoughts on that. Cause I mean, that's what it boils down to, right? Is preparing, the mind and body, right?
For sure. I mean, we're going to say that like at the elite level, performance is 90% mental, but we train 100% physical. And I'll preface this with, I have the utmost respect for Simone Biles. She still remains one of the greatest athletes of any sport of all time. Right. I don't question her toughness. And after taking third, I don't question her resiliency, but I will say that, and I have no judgment to her pulling out. If anything, I feel like it was valid for her to pull out. What I do have a problem with, and what's unfortunate, is the fact that she underperformed in Olympic trials, and she, audibly talked about in her documentary and in a lot of the interviews, the stress and the pressure, being the face of the Olympics. And I'm sure it's on some days that was probably uplifting for her. But I think being the face of the Olympics and, having all this additional pressure and things that happened, I don't think she was properly prepared mentally to deal with the stress that she experienced. So I feel like it was not a mental health crisis. It was not a physical crisis. It wasn't just mental health or vertigo. I believe that it was a stress management and emotional regulation issue that then exacerbated whatever physical issues she would have had. I think, poor stress management, poor mindset management caused her essentially, in my opinion, this is my opinion, in fact, caused her to short circuit and exacerbate problems physically, like twisties, vertigo, things like that. So your mind and your body is so connected, and stress and the hormones that are produced by stress, like cortisol, can literally kill you. You can have heart attacks and die. So I think that, had she been better prepared mentally, and maybe she does see a sports psych, maybe she does see a mental coach. I highly doubt it based on what I heard coming from her in all her interviews. So I think, like I said, and similar to what Henry Cejudo had to say, is that there were some issues dealing with the pressure and some of the other things. My professional opinion is that caused an impact on her physical well-being. As a result of the impact on her physical well-being, she needed to take a step back and focus on herself, right? And realistically, if vertigo was a real thing that happened, and I believe that was a real thing that happened, then she would be putting herself in danger to compete and do the things that she was doing. Right. Moral of the story is that I believe that this was preventable, or could have at least been like slightly less of an issue, to maybe where she didn't have to pull out, but she didn't do as well, or it wasn't such a big deal and she could have still competed. So moral of the story is that this shows us that no one, not even the greatest Olympic athlete of all time, is above training your mindset. And I don't believe she is probably a prideful person. She probably just didn't see, and her coaches maybe didn't see the need to seek out these resources, because a lot of people see mental training as damage control, and like you have to be sick in order to want to get better.
And she's if you pedestal, right? I mean, so 100%, she's it, right? So to self-reflect, and one thing you said, you don't have to be sick to fix things, or what's the quote you use?
You don't have to be sick to want to get better.
There you go. Right. Exactly. Right. And if they would have caught that in the beginning, maybe when she was just off, right, they could have course corrected at the trials or wherever it may be.
And maybe she wouldn't have never been off if she just consistently trained her mindset. Like the guys that I work with in the UFC, let's take an Ohio boy, Matt Brown from Columbus. Mm-hmm. He has the tied for the most knockouts in UFC history. That dude's pretty tough. Yeah. And he recognizes the need to, he talked about it on Rogan, and he talks about it to me. He recognized the need that at this level, like, I just need to train all the muscles. And he's like, I don't know how to fight. I just got to make sure that not only do I show up and compete to the best of my ability every day in training and competition, but I want to enjoy this process more. And, your mind should be a weapon, not something that you need to manage like a problem.
Right. Great point. And it's not like you get to that elite level, then you start working mentally, right? You're already behind at that point, or you don't
100%.
achieve your maximum, potential. So
For sure.
At all levels, all sports, right? That's, move back to wrestling. We were talking, you mentioned Ohio Ty, but, Fargo, right? You had some great takes coming from Fargo, a couple weeks removed from that, but it's still the same point. I know you guys see a lot of influx, right? In June, right? They get done with their state season or whatever it may be. And then they're, reaching back out in June. It's like, no, that, you need to be training the whole time, right?
Year round. Yeah. We don't stop wrestling, right? You don't stop wrestling, but for a week or two. So, if you're going to say wrestling is 99% mental, that's straight from Kerry Colott. Then again, why do we train like 1% mental, intentionally train, right? There's a difference between talking about confidence and doing mindset training and intentionally learning how to build confidence. And I think that's the big thing. And then there's ego. It's like good coaches already do this. Good coaches give advice, right? So how do you train mindset? You give advice, you listen to podcasts and you read books. All right. So going forward, stop wrestling, stop lifting, stop running. Let's read books about lifting. Let's listen to podcasts about running, and let's stop drilling and doing live. We're just going to watch videos.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. Yep. No, but going back to Fargo, right? Valiant, right, was a big club that made some waves out there. And then
so hold on, actually, so I have to pause you for a second. Okay. Common misconception: everybody thinks Valiant is a club. Valiant is actually wrestling only high school.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, it is an entire high school. Now they tried to have other sports, and then COVID hit, so they wanted like basketball, not baseball, like football and track and stuff. And we can get into all those details later. But a lot of people think Valiant's a club. Valiant's a high school. It's a group of kids that dedicated their life and forfeited the ability to win high school state titles to wrestle on a national schedule, because at the moment, the national preps and the Arizona Athletic Association do not recognize them as a school that's allowed to compete. Now we're hoping to change that this year, but these kids essentially went all in with Eric Larkin, Angel Cejudo, and a really good support staff, and myself included, to wrestling national schedule to prepare them for the next level instead of chasing 2, 3, 4-time Arizona state championships.
Nice. They showed up right out of Fargo, right?
They showed up. They had 7 freestyle All-Americans, 10 All-Americans total. Their total tied OPRF, Oak Park River Forest, OPRF, for the most medals at Fargo in high school history.
Oh, wow. Jeez, OP. So, and then you gave a big shout out to Dylan Fishback, right? I mean, my tie to Ohio, I thought, that's what kind of connected us here. And, so what's, I guess his story, and what you've worked with him then in Aurora, right?
Yes. Aurora and Dylan. And, so obviously, Valiant kind of stole the show from Dylan. I'll explain that here in a second. Valiant had 10 All-Americans, 5 in the finals, 3 champs. They had an unseeded, unranked, not only champion, but most outstanding wrestler in Kyler Larkin. So shout out to Kyler for a tournament of a lifetime. And they were all smiling doing it. But Dylan bumped up weight classes in the junior division to chase Rylan Rogers and Shoemate. For you Ohio guys, everyone's been waiting for Shoemate and Dylan to wrestle for years, and they never have wrestled. And, the rumor has it that Shoemate actually made a bet with somebody that he would pin Dylan in the first period, and Dylan got wind of that. So Dylan not only beat him, he 5'd him and pinned him, if I'm correct, right?
Right.
Yeah. So Dylan wrestled bigger, tougher competition than, I'm not saying 82 is an easy route, but 95 was the harder route. He was discouraged from others going 95. You don't need to do that. You're right around 82. You're just going to cut a few pounds. And he's like, no, I'm not here to win Fargo. I'm here to get ready for college. And that's been our mindset. He walked through the state tournament last year, and our mindset was never win a Ohio State title. Let's get ready for college. And so he chased better competition. He faced Rogers from Malvern Prep, beat him in a difficult match. He was down 4-0 in the quarterfinals, came back, found a way to win. And, Shoemate's a goddamn house, man. And if you look at Dylan's face, Dylan and I took a picture after the semis. His face is clean. He looked like he got in a fight with a baseball bat.
Right. You posted on your Instagram, right? Was that what
I did? Yeah. Here,
beat up face.
I'm gonna show this picture because, like, my gosh,
for our audio listeners, right? Just mindset. There it is. Holy goodness, got the blood off. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's smiling. Like, here, let me just keep zooming in because it just gets better. He looks like the undead.
That's a good way to put it.
The kid looks like a damn zombie, and he had a game plan coming in, but the biggest thing with him, the biggest thing with Valiant, the biggest thing with two of my other teams that won national titles this year, you get to be here. You get to do this. You don't have to win. You got to understand that, like, this is an opportunity to show everyone in the country how good you are. Valiant's goal was never none of those kids' goals was not to win Fargo. I actually did not allow them to say Fargo. We called it the F word. So you're not allowed to say Fargo because Fargo has all these mystical powers, right? Like, guys, you wrestle a national schedule all the time. Like, stop calling it Fargo. It's just junior nationals, cadet nationals. And so for Dylan, for Valiant, for the other kids that we work with, it was Christmas, right? Like, Valiant had a Christmas tree in their room. They had ornaments with their goals on it. Oh, nice. They listened to Christmas music in leading up to the tournament. I showed up to their hotel the night before in a Santa hat. Like, it's something where, like, hey man, this is a holiday. Right. You get to do this. My one of my UFC fighters that just won this last weekend, Jin Yu Fry, she was 0-2 in the UFC and now she's 2-0. And fight week is vacation. She doesn't like Christmas. So fight week is vacation. Mm-hmm. She used to hate fight week and the obligations that she had to do with the media. She's quiet. She's introverted. She doesn't really like that. And I'll share with you something that she said, just giving you a perspective, when you shift the way that you look at things, it's a lot easier to be successful. And what she said in her last fight was great. Hold on. I'm going to pull it up for you. Just because I want people to understand that you put so much pressure on yourself to perform that, like, the week leading up to the state tournament or Fargo, you're stressed, right? Like the night before you're stressed, but like, you should be excited. Like, this is vacation or Christmas. So
you're blessed with the opportunity to do what most people want to do, right?
You would there are people that didn't qualify from Ohio that placed at the state tournament to go to Fargo because it's so deep. You get to do this. You don't have to win. So let me see, Jen. Yeah, here we go. Let me see if I can play this for you.
You're coming into this week. I was excited to be here. I was excited to do, all the things that I needed to do during fight week. And
she's just talking about how, like, she was excited to be there. And if you listen to, to Larkin and to all those kids, it's not a secret that, oh, hold on. Let me play this.
I never feel pressured. I feel excited. I feel good.
And Adrian Meza said the same thing. They're like, what was your mindset coming to the match? And it was like, man, I was just excited to wrestle. Like, this is something, like, you get to do this. You love wrestling. Like, this is what you worked for. Not something that you've worked for, not something you waited for that you don't want to mess up. Like, so for Jen, it was vacation. For them, it was the week of Christmas, and making the finals was opening the gift that they've been waiting for all year. And yeah, man, when you switch the narrative from pressure to being excited to perform, you switch your brain chemistry from cortisol, the stress hormone, I don't want to mess it up, to dopamine, I'm so excited to be here. And that ultimately comes from, everyone talks about Penn State always has so much fun. They always have so much there was so much fun. Mm-hmm. So why? They're flowing with dopamine. They get to do this. They don't have to win.
Right. No, and a lot of young kids, young adults don't have that perspective if they're not mindset training, right? And an injury happens, then they realize, oh man, how grateful was it when I was healthy or when I could do it. And then at that point, it's usually too late because they're chasing an injury, whatever it may be, right? And being grateful to be present. It's like you said, it's literally part of your body, part of your mindset, and part of your performance, right?
Coaches are always like, well, I tell my kids to have fun all the time. I'm like, that's cool. you could tell them to jump off a bridge. That doesn't mean that they're going to do it. More of the story is, you could tell a kid to have fun, but that's not how he thinks. He thinks he has to win. So he feels like he can't make a mistake. He thinks that this is Fargo. So he feels like it's the toughest kids in the country and he can't make a mistake. So he's not going to pull the trigger and he's not going to take chances. Now, maybe your kid isn't afraid to make a mistake or fail, but he still feels like he's got that attachment to winning. Like, I have to win. And do you remember in the cadet finals when Adrian Meza from Valiant, the 20-pounder, when he beat Aiden Valencia? Did you watch that match?
No, I didn't catch that one.
So Valencia in the closing moments fell to the ground, shook so hard because he was crying so hard, and his coach had to physically pick him up off the mat because, clear as day, his self-worth is connected to whether or not he won or lost, versus if you're just excited to be there and you give everything that you have. That's why a Penn State guy can lose in the finals, do an interview and sign an autograph. It's like, man, like, I did everything that I could. Like, I'm disappointed, but like, wrestling doesn't define me. And at the highest level, that's why Penn State won 8 out of 9 in a row, because they believe their mental edge is gratitude. Gratitude means I'm excited to play. I get to do this. I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to showcase my skills, versus obligation, right? Where I have to win, so I can't make a mistake. And you know how that goes.
Right. I mean, just talking earlier this morning or watching earlier this morning, right? TMS winning the gold, right? Mensa stock. I mean, just her post-match, interview and just gratitude, right? She was happy to be there. Just emotions pouring out of her. And, Adeline Gray yesterday, she was, grateful, right? Her post-match interview, right? She lost, didn't achieve that mountain she wanted, but, they were grateful. And, like you said, similar to Penn State, it's, they're happy to be there. It doesn't define them, but, they're working just as hard no matter what, right?
One team had 5 number 1 seeds at the NCAA tournament. So if rankings and records and seeds matter, they have 5 champs. This particular team went 1 for 5. Penn State had four guys in the finals, not all number 1 seeds. They went 4 for 4. Took second with 6 underclassmen. Again, it's not a Penn State boost and a hit on other teams. You could see at the highest level, focusing on the right things makes it hard to do the wrong ones. And if you lose, it's just, man, someone was better than me that day. And I think another great example of that is there were 2 high school juniors that made the finals of the Olympic trials. Like, so most people think that like, oh, they were just really good. Nah. Think about this. Okay. The girls that they beat were exceptional. They dedicate their life to wrestling. These girls are still in high school, right? 2 high school girls, man, I'm just excited to be there. Right. Those other girls are like, I've worked 4 years to make a team. Right. We saw some guys and girls like really underperform at Olympic trials. And it was clear that like, there's a lot of pressure to make a team versus those girls were just excited to be there. And, funny, shout out to Kylie Welker. I'm sitting with Manny Rojas, who's I work with Catholic Central. So I'm sitting with Manny Rojas having a conversation about exactly that, how like, referencing Olympic trials and how 2 high school juniors made the finals. And, I was like, and Welker too, like Welker, not just Blades, but Welker too. And he starts giggling and I'm like, why are you laughing? He's like, well, Kylie's sitting right in front of us, dude. No. So I was like, hey, I'll just tell you to your face, man, super impressed. But in my opinion, like, I'm not saying that you weren't the best girl in the bracket or the second best girl in the bracket, but man, like, you were just excited to be there and make the most of the opportunity.
And you're seeing it at the NCAAs, the younger, right? Freshmen, whatever, but it's definitely easier to get to the top of the mountain than to stay there. Right. And it's totally different. They better be preparing their mindset too, right? Like, now I'm here, right? Now that target's on their back.
100%.
Then getting to that mountain, right? We talked about a little bit off air, but the ego side of it, right? Obviously ego and, team and self, right? A lot of that plays into having an ego, but not too much, being team oriented and, at times, and then, focus on self. What's your words of wisdom on ego and how to balance that sometimes?
I mean, what does everybody say in life, right? Like ego kills. So everyone says, fear kills more dreams than, what is it?
The fear of failure.
Doubt kills more dreams than something ever will. Whatever it was, ego kills more dreams and prevents people from opportunities. Like people don't see things as opportunities, right? Like mindset training is an opportunity to get better. Your mind's a muscle, it's working, right? And whether it be athletes, whether it be coaches, you know, at this point in the game, I think it's like abundantly clear, especially after Fargo, right? Especially after the Olympics, that if you were on the fence, you have to at a minimum see like, listen, I can't hurt you, right? Like the mind's a muscle that we need to train. 90% of our kids are losing matches or underperforming because of this and this, not because of this, right? But ego gets in the way of a lot of people because they feel like, well, if I'm doing this, there must be something wrong with me. Or like, if I'm having my team do this and I'm not doing a good enough job, like, no, this is an opportunity to have this is a resource. You know, I see it especially at like the college level, like D1 level, you know, a lot of programs, like college age and like D1 coaching age it's an interesting dynamic. It's a lot of pride. It's a lot of bravado. And, you know, it's hard. These kids feel like they know it all a lot of the times, right? With the exception of like the best,
right?
Because they're so hungry to get better. But like the 95%, they have this like ego, like I'm a D1 athlete, right? You know, I'm a D1 guy. Like what separates number 5 from number 1? Were you that much, was number 1 that much better? Or did number 1 just have that much better of a tournament? You know, so just a lot of ego. And you know where there's no ego? Professional sports. They just want to make more money. They win, they make more money. You know, I have no problem selling this to UFC fighters.
Yeah.
Right. I have no problem selling this to professional athletes when they contact. They're like, hey man, heard you the guy, you know, just want to climb the rankings and I'm number 9 right now. I want to get top 5. I'm top 5 right now. I want to get number 1. A lacrosse team was like, we've been to the NCAA finals 3 times. Need to change something. We underperformed all these times. Like, you know, let's see if mindset training is what makes the difference. And a lack of ego goes a long way. So to, you know, what I hear a lot of Penn State, I'm not going to say which person told me, but somebody involved in the program said that, you know, Cael asks other people for their opinion constantly. And this particular person was telling me, they're like, Cael could tell me what to do. And like, we would just do it because he's Cael, right? Like Cael, there's a shirt that says Cael Knows. Yeah. Right. And Cael knows, but Cael is consistently trying to, you know, garner the opinion and thoughts of others because, and to quote him, if you don't improvise, what is it? If you don't continually evolve and adapt, you'll learn a painful lesson from somebody who has.
Right.
So if the guy at the top of the, you know, one of the top of the heap for all of wrestling is constantly evolving and adapting and doing things different. I mean, I don't know if you guys know this. Penn State has their own mental coach that is not allowed to work with anybody else but Penn State wrestling.
So he's dedicated.
She is dedicated.
Okay.
And it's not even a wrestling specific thing. You know, I'm not going to put their secrets out there, but like, you know, they have a lady that Cael worked with for the Olympics that he then brought to State College and is with that team all the time. All the guys swear by her. And it has a lot to do with being happy. Mm-hmm. And that's why those guys have a lot of fun. They're happy to wrestle.
Wow. Yeah, definitely consistent, right? And the culture's thriving and, you know, once you buy in, right, it's contagious, right?
100%. And there was one thing I forgot to mention about Dylan too, that I just wanted to circle back real quick and to, you know, to give kids perspective is that Dylan didn't bump up to win Fargo at 195. He bumped up to chase better competition because competition is an opportunity to get better.
Right.
It's not something we have to win. It's a chance to get better. And it's also a chance, like Dylan, let's be honest, like hasn't gotten the respect that he deserves in the last couple of years. He tech falled a top 5 kid in the country and barely broke into the top 10. Right. And, you know, cause he's not a D1 kid. Everyone sees Shoemate, you know, if a school was recruiting Shoemate, they weren't recruiting Dylan. Right. And, you know, Dylan
State got a good one, right?
Adam Hall, how many times have I told you since before Dylan was as good as he was that like, and he knows what he got. And I've been telling him that for years now. And anyways, long story short is that, you know, competition should be an opportunity to get better, not an obligation to win. And that's why Dylan competed free. And in his interview, you know, he's like, man, I was just focused on trying to wrestle my best and score the next point, you know, like, if I did that, the desired outcome would be there. And the outcome was not to win a stop sign. It was to prove that we were the best kid in the country. For Valiant, it was to prove we're one of the best teams in the country. So Emilio Isagiri, who lost in the last 5 seconds from Valiant in the national finals. I said, man, you got what you came for. It hurt because you lost, but didn't you show that you're the best kid in the country, dominating Nick Bouzakis, and then winning 5 minutes and 55 seconds of a match? Like, you just made a tactical error because you didn't know the score, but you showed you were the best kid in the country.
Right.
That's what you came here for.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you came.
You got what you came for, but it wasn't attached to outcomes. And that's why Dylan and those guys competed very free. And that's why Dylan gets a ticket to Who's Number One. Not because he won Fargo, but because he proved undoubtedly you are the best kid in the country.
Right. It's pretty cool to watch that happen. And obviously, and then everyone got the match, here in Ohio that they wanted to see, no matter how it ended up, we got that opportunity as fans. Right. Pretty cool story shared off air too. Dundee, right? That's kind of part of your origin story too, right? And working in Michigan,
Yes.
We got a lot of Midwest listeners and Ohio listeners, and Michigan
Yes.
up north. I guess share that, just kind of the beginning. Any stories you pull from that, or tell us about.
For sure. So, I left the FBI in 2016. Fargo was the first event that I worked as a full-time Wrestling Mindset employee. I didn't even get a salary or anything like that at the time. I was 100% commission, so I had to eat what I killed, right? So very, 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 very early days. There was no such thing as Mindset Mike. Mindset Mike, by the way, was
who gave you that? Was it? Well, go ahead. What?
Yeah, Mindset Mike was given to me by Michaela Beck.
Okay.
I worked with her for many years. We still keep in touch. Shout out to Beck. Love that girl. We're both New Yorkers, so we're both Long Island New Yorkers, cut from a very similar cloth. So Beck had so many Coach Mikes in her phone that she would call me Mindset Mike. So fast forward, I was running this wrestling academy in Houston. So my Instagram was Without Limits Wrestling for the longest time. And then I had to create a Twitter, and I'm like, well, I need something for me. Like, I'm not doing this academy. I'm not doing the Twitter for the academy. It's for Mindset. And I was like, Beck calls me Mindset Mike. That's pretty catchy. And then just kind of like took with it and ran it. And, people don't even know my last name half the time, first name Mindset, last name Mike. And so like, I'm at like Big Tens taking a piss in the bathroom, and like, there's Division I coaches like, aren't you Mindset Mike? I'm like, how do you know that by the side of my head?
That's awesome. That's pretty cool.
So going back to Dundee. So Fargo was the first event. That was July. One of the first state coaching conventions. And that's one of my jobs, right? A Wrestling Mindset. I work with a lot of the top tier teams, but I also get to travel and speak at like hundreds of state and national conventions in different sports, wrestling being the main one. So Casey Randolph from Clinton High School called Wrestling Mindset, and he said, hey, we'd love to have you guys speak. Like, can't really pay you or anything, but like, this is years ago now, right? This is 2016. And he's like, but we'd love to have you speak. So I was like, Michigan, is that even like a big wrestling state? Like, I mean, I know their colleges are good, but like, I don't know anything about their high schools. So I go there. At the time, I had just started working with Casey Swiderski and his brother Tyler from Dundee. Mm-hmm. And I met them at Super 32. Casey was like 7th or 8th grade, super hot-headed. And I met his dad, Dale, and he's like, man, you need to meet our high school coach, Tim Roberts. He wins a bunch of state titles, but we're always battling every year. He loves Mindset. He'll be all about it. So Dundee High School was, by the way, look at the back of our shirt.
Oh, wow.
Dundee made these shirts. I didn't make these shirts. Dundee made these shirts. And so I go to the Michigan tournament. It's like Michigan Clinic. It's like one of the first times that I ever spoke, super raw. I don't even think I had a PowerPoint. Maybe I did, but it was probably terrible. And
good thing they weren't paying you, right?
Yeah, right. They weren't paying you. Right. I know. I'm a really good speaker, but like one of the things that people have realized, like, man, I've seen you over the years, like you've just really like polished the way that you deliver the message. I'm like, well, no shit. It's you have an idea of what you want to talk about. Then you spend 5 years talking about it. You figure how it should sound. Right. Long story short, Dundee was the first ever Wrestling Mindset team client that I ever worked with. And, they signed up that year. We didn't even have a standard operating procedures to take teams. Like we had just like if we were taking teams, it was kind of like, well, we think we should do these worksheets. Like, what are your problems? And we had like just came up with a team program. Like when I was the greenest of green, before Mindset Mike existed, any of that stuff, I worked with Dundee. The coach and the team just believed in me. And, they lost 28-28 in criteria in the state finals with the eighth criteria, which is most first points scored. One of the biggest things that I communicate with my team: score first, chase 8. Long story short, Tim, sang our praises, and for the next year, he was voted coach of the year or whatever. The next year, Tim talks about wrestling mindset to all the coaches at the Michigan clinic year 2. From there, I got Detroit Catholic Central and Clinton High School, who was, on their way up. Fast forward, I think either the next year or the year after, I have all 4 teams in Michigan that won a state title that year. Wow. Now, we worked with about 35 teams in Michigan. Michigan, hands down, the large, like from those relationships, we a hotbed for wrestling mindset. And so Dundee, Catholic Central, Lowell High School that won their 8th or 9th in a row. Clinton High School had won their first 2 years ago. So I'm at the Michigan team state tournament. All 4 of my teams win a state title.
Their team state title. That's the big deal, right? The duels.
That's the duels is what everybody's about. And like, just like Ohio too, right? Like, everyone's about that. And long story short, like Michigan was my biggest platform, became my biggest platform. And I owe that really to Dundee starting me off, and to Tim Roberts and believing in me, before anyone gave a crap who I was. And, Tim and I both learned a lot about how to really weaponize wrestling mindset. And like I said, I always pay respects to all of those guys in Michigan because of them and the success that we've had that opened doors for me in other places. Then those doors open more doors. So, I'm on a Midwest podcast, so I have to.
There you go. No, that's awesome.
Have to make sure I rep my voice.
No, thanks for sharing that. Because, people probably think like, oh, you just walk in and you're a natural at, speaking, whatever it is. So thanks for sharing that. Right. You kind of had to learn yourself, and, I
was always a good speaker. I always interviewed real well. Like I had a gift of gab, but like my experience in Michigan is really what polished a lot of the things that, the things that I've made that have really made me and made me successful and helped me do things. My Michigan teams were the first teams that I really tried that out on. And, again, shout out Casey Swiderski made the Fargo finals this year. Ranked as high as number 2 in the country. He's wrestling at Who's Number 1. Braden Davis, I'd be surprised if he doesn't wrestle at Who's Number 1. Again, from small town Dundee. Stoney Buell just graduated, Fargo champ out of Dundee. Brandon Davis, Fargo finalist. Like, they do things right, not just at Dundee and Michigan. And, I'll say one more thing about Michigan before we move on is I'm such a fan of Michigan and Ohio wrestling culture. Michigan first and Ohio second, and I'll tell you why. So Michigan has not had the same success that Ohio has, but they do have some very, very high profile, and they've done a lot of great things. They have Simmons, Donahoe, MSU, and I had the opportunity to work with MSU for 2 seasons as well, Central and a few other colleges. Long story is that I've noticed that what's unique is that like all these top tier schools in Michigan were seeking me out to help their team in different ways for different reasons. I'm like, Mitch Hancock, you're probably like the best high school coach in the country, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And you're using resources because like, yes, you win a lot of state titles. You want to win your state titles by bigger margins, and you want to close the national rankings. Like, that says so much about how the lack of ego that you have. And, admittedly, he was like, I got a system and a process for everything, but I don't have one for this. That's what you guys do. And, it's just like such a clear lack of ego in the higher levels of Michigan wrestling. And that's why you've seen them grow. Those coaches send their kids to 5 different clubs, and they've got all these resources. Like, they don't care. They just want kids to get better. Ohio, I think, does a really good job of that. I think Zeb was there at the Burnett camp that I was at. And there were like 15 high school coaches learning from another high school coach. Right. Because like they recognize like, hey man, like Scotty and Eric Burnett, like, what you're doing. Right. Like, we just want to get better, like less, like minimal ego. Now, don't get me wrong. Ohio definitely has quite a bit of ego.
Right. But it's funny how it's the pocket, like Northeast. I mean, there's always gonna be ego wherever, but Northeast, they're not afraid to work together, and then in other pockets, like so territorial, you know.
I was so impressed. I was so impressed by the lack of ego that there were so many high school coaches there. So what's the reason being? They love wrestling. It's about getting better. It's about the kids. It's not about anything else. And, so much respect to the Burnetts. I think, again, some of the best high school coaches and best human beings in the country in the sport of wrestling.
100%. Eric and Scotty and Jody and Janet, just great people, right? If you're at a tournament, see them, they're sincere, right? And we're very blessed to have them here in Ohio. That's for certain. Always excited. Actually was just with them a couple of days ago. So they're great people. So, you talk about top level, right? Talking top level, college, Olympic top level. Do you work mainly through team? Is it team atmosphere? I guess what I'm getting at is, at what age is mindset training, right? Probably it's a maturity factor, but what are some of the factors, a coach or a parent should be looking at, okay, this athlete, this young person can start working on their mindset?
So say that the first part of that question one more time. You said,
I guess first part is it only team aspect, or you do?
No, team and individual. We have thousands of individuals. Okay. So when we say we work with 4,000 athletes and teams, it's teams that are comprised of numerous athletes and then tons of individuals. Okay. Like last few years, we had 5 kids that are ranked #1 in the country. Nice. Right. And then we had a bunch of kids that were just trying to get a 500 record. So, there's 3 levels of clients, and there are a lot of individuals, just like there are a lot of teams. 3 levels of clients, whether it be team or individual. The average wrestler that just wants to jump levels, get the most out of himself. The really good wrestler that's looking to close the gap, and then the best wrestlers in teams that want to widen the gap.
Gotcha.
Right. So there's no age, there's no level. Like everyone in the country, bar none, should be doing mindset training. Right. Every single person, whether you're the #1 kid in the country and you want to stay there, or you're brand new to wrestling and you are 10 years old and you want to have a foundation built in being taught intentionally confidence, relaxing under pressure. Why do we wrestle? 2 reasons. 3 these days. I want to be in the UFC one day. So wrestling. Right.
It's funny how it used to be WWE, right? WWE right? Back in the day, I'm like, I showed up to practice because I thought I was going to be jumping off turnbuckles. Right now, it's like 100%. Right.
Right. One of my assistant coaches, he's in the room next to me, and like the entire reason that he started wrestling in Indiana was because he wanted to be an MMA fighter one day. Right. So like that's definitely a new age thing. So I would say primarily people do it because it's in their family or it's in their community. Secondarily, like they're short, they can't play other sports, and or they want to have a future in combat sports. And then if a parent puts a child into wrestling, whether they're experienced in wrestling or not, most parents put children into combat sports because they want them to learn the life lessons that a one-on-one combat sports will teach you. Well, colleges are saying that they're inheriting middle school level coping mechanisms now in incoming college freshmen. So what that means is that we're no longer able to throw your kid into wrestling and he casually learns how to be tough, aggressive, and focus on the right things. Those are the things that must be intentionally taught. So I say that to say there is no age. There is no I would say the only thing that's too early is maybe when they're before 8 years old. They don't necessarily need one-on-one training, but we do have like some programs for youth wrestlers. Matty Lopez goes to Blair, and he's a numerous time state champion in Connecticut leading up to the times where he went to Blair. I worked with Matty when he was 9 and 10 years old, me personally. Nice. One of the smartest clients that I ever had as a 9-year-old, 10-year-old, because he was so driven to get better at wrestling, and he understood that mindset was something that he didn't do well at the higher levels of wrestling. And yeah, he really was emotionally intelligent enough to understand it. I've got 17-year-olds that are emotionally stupid and don't put the pieces of the puzzle together. Moral of the story, there's no, once you hit 9 or 10 and 35 years old and, you're 18 fights into the UFC, everyone should be doing some sort of mental training. It's either, 90% of athletes lose or underperform because of mindset. The other 10% could benefit. The goal for everyone is to get to the point where mindset becomes your edge, right? And not an Achilles heel. So that's why I say, even if you don't have problems, you don't wait till you're 104-degree fever and your legs gangrene to go to the doctor, right? You just want to get better. So either you're losing matches or you just want to get better, but we all have the same goal. So teams and individuals for sure across all sports. We've got individual kids in lacrosse. We've got individual kids in basketball. I told you I worked with an archery team,
Right. Awesome.
poker players, business people, and then, teams like Life University that won a national championship, upset Grandview, teams like Rochester Institute of Technology that won their first NCAA title in lacrosse, you name it.
Anything that's on the line that's going to raise your heart rate, and you have to, think critically, right? Your mind comes into play, right? Like you said.
So bottom line, parents, smart parents know it's not about wrestling. It's about life.
Right. Great point.
Wrestling's a vehicle to learn to win in life. Let's make sure they get those lessons and do it times 10. Because when you learn to, get the most out of yourself in wrestling, you learn how to do it in college and school, you probably make less poor choices and you're able to handle failure better. You get to the real world where life is completely unforgiving. You make less mistakes, you make better choices, you handle failure better, and you progress faster than everybody else in this generation.
100%. No, that's it, man. So, anything else before we jump off here? Anything else you have? Or anything you want to share? Anything you kind of missed or can think of?
I think just the biggest thing is, at the highest level, at every level, but especially at the highest level, it's reminding people, I get to do this. Right. You get to do this. And we have to have that attitude as coaches, as parents, as students, right? Athletes, you get to go to practice. You don't have to go to practice. Practice is an opportunity to get better. Drilling. Everyone hates drilling. Well, drilling is an opportunity to perfect your skills for live. Live is an opportunity to practice your game plan before the weekend. The weekend is an opportunity to showcase your skills in front of your friends. Look at how hard I've been working, right? And to test out your game plan before the next week and before the next week. So when you start learning to treat sports as an opportunity, then you start seeking opportunities in life, and everything becomes an opportunity. Something goes wrong. What do I learn from this versus why did this happen to me? Right. So that's the biggest thing that I've taken away from studying mindset in the last few years. I get to do this, right? I don't have to win. And, I think that's such a powerful thing. And I'll finish on this. One of my newer clients, he's a longtime training partner of Conor McGregor, biggest fighter to come out of Ireland since Conor, 24 years old, massive following. He's a Bellator fighter. His name's James Gallagher. And James said this the other day, and I listened to it over and over. He said it in an interview. And man, I'm just I'm so grateful that people like him and some of these other fighters that I work with, like these high level people, that when our work together shows up in your interview, right? And you say things that either we've directly said or you just straight up, tout value to mental training at the highest level. Hearing him talk like this was one of the most satisfying things as a coach in my field. So I'll just play it for you. I think it's so true, and we can all learn from this.
I just stick to the facts of the game, and that's that. And when you know who you truly are, you're not as scared of losing, and you learn to grow yourself to become the best version of yourself, and that's when you start winning. Because you're not scared of nothing, you're just doing you. You're just putting it on display, being grateful for the opportunity to compete. I don't need to win. I just need to display my skill set. I just need to do the best version of me. And unlucky for everyone else, the best version of me is better than everyone else.
Oh, I just get I get so many chills. Yes. And he means that. He's not talking smack. He means that in his heart and in his balls.
And that's your training coming out, right? I mean, together, you guys manufacture that, right?
He has supreme confidence in himself, he shines under the lights. But for him, it was I want to become the best version of myself. I believe that I'm already the best fighter in the world in my weight class. But when I fight, it's removing the I feel like I want to win to I just need to show you how good. Watch how good I am. I want to put on such a show. Watch how good I am. And then you hear Dylan say,
I had to wrestle to my best abilities because I just had to wrestle one match at a time and focus on scoring the next points.
Same message, right? Same message.
Say, massive.
If I took care of that, I'd get the result I wanted.
You know, and if I just took care of that, then I took care of that, and I got the result I wanted.
And if you do everything right, your body, mind, everything, and you fall short, then nothing to be upset about, right?
There's no big deal.
I did what I could do, right?
If you worked for 40 hours, would you give half your paycheck back to your boss? Of course not. Then why are you going to train for a whole season just to put pressure and not enjoy the moment of getting to compete at the state tournament, getting to compete at Fargo? You earn the right to be here. Listen, so, all right, Kyler Larkin, yes, Mason Gibson, pretty damn good. Are you supposed to win on paper? Absolutely not. You're supposed to get your ass handed to you. But you get the chance to wrestle the best kids in the country. Let's be excited. And he was so excited that he got to wrestle. Valiant Drew Kong, if you know who that is, that dual meet team. Yep. Valiant Drew Kong first round at the Spartan Combat tournament down south. Most teams would be like, we're really good. Why would you put such a good team in the first pool together? Like, why would you? They were like, well, I mean, we don't really care about winning this tournament. We came here to wrestle the best kids in the country. Let's go.
It's two different mindsets, right? Two different.
I get to wrestle the best versus I have to beat a really good kid.
Right. No, that's awesome. Great stuff, Coach.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And again, I share those things not as a compliment to me or to mindset training. I share those things because those of you that are listening, those are the kinds of people and the things that you want to do. You want to be like that. You want to win Fargo. You want to compete at Who's Number One. That's how you want to fight in Bellator and the UFC. That's how they think. Get on board.
No, 100%. You're making an impact, right? You're doing what you love and you're making an impact and you're seeing these guys, right, put the work in and then achieving what they want to achieve, right?
With a smile on their face.
Right. Enjoying it while doing
yes.
it. No, it's so cool.
That's the
and,
cool.
Like I said, I was blessed at a young age. My dad, didn't put it as nice as you're putting it, but, preach those messages as a parent, the mindset training and, he was parent, right? He wasn't coach. So, oh, wow.
This is why we coach, right?
Yes.
This is why we coach.
Exactly.
Right.
Awesome.
I did.
Those guys listening, you gotta go watch the video version, but it's kids headgear on, nose plugs, middle of practice, all sweating it out. And
so actually,
coach, right?
Little 10-year-old broke his nose day one of a 6-day intensive camp that Kraus, Nick Simmons, and Lauren Louise put on. Okay. And the kid next to him was bleeding all over the place. And they're sitting there smiling for a picture because they're so excited that they get to wrestle.
So cool, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Coach. Very, very insightful, stories you have and the approach to the sport, and just awesome seeing your guys getting results and you guys doing what you do. Like I said, I had Jake on a while back and just love talking to you guys. It's exciting. You guys are in wrestling, right? We're blessed that you guys are passionate about wrestling, right? You could pick other sports, but pretty cool to have you guys involved in the sport and just making it better. So thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
So what's going on in the Sportatorium? What's coming up at the Sportatorium?
We're doing a really cool little thing on the 28th and 29th of this month. I got a good friend of mine, Ronnie Tarquinio. He's the head coach at Trinity High School. He was a 2-time ACC champ at Pitt, and he was a Fargo champ his senior year, a state runner-up in PA. He's gonna do our Saturday 10 to noon, and then Devin Brown is back with me. Devin's gonna do a session, and then Aaron McKinney, who wrestled at Lock Haven, won 100 matches. He's gonna come in and he's gonna do a session on Sunday. Then we're gonna bring in a referee, man. And we're gonna just start scrapping it out.